So my business partner and I, Jamie, started the Girls Room Project, and we both are endometriosis patients, and we are so passionate about early education and recognizing that there's a massive gap in the wellness area on giving language to both parents and young girls and how to actually talk about periods, hormones, reproductive disease, self-advocacy, what to look for, what not to look for, and how do parents talk to their kids about it, and how do kids feel confident to talk to their parents about it. And so we created an online membership educational space for teens, tweens, and young adults and the parents that love them.
Welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis. Elevate Within is for the high-achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. This is a space for honest conversations about reinvention, resilience, healing, leadership, and what it really takes to rebuild from the inside out. Each week, I'm joined by my co-host, Claudia Cuevas, licensed marriage and family therapist, as we explore the stories, lessons, and emotional realities behind transformation. Because reinvention isn't just about changing our circumstances. It's about understanding yourself. It's about healing. It's about letting go of who you thought you had to be so you can become who you were always meant to be. Whether you're navigating burnout, grief, identity shifts, career transitions, entrepreneurships, caregiving, or simply asking yourself, what's next? You are not alone. So take a breath, pull up a chair, and join us at the table. This is Elevate Within. Hello, and welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis. When exploring the architecture of reinvention, the truth is, most of us don't become someone new overnight. Life, grief, illness, and loss changes us. Sometimes the person we thought we would be collides with the circumstances we never could have planned for. And suddenly, we're standing in the space between who we used to be and who we're becoming. Today's guest knows that space intimately. I'm honored to introduce Callie Greenberg. Callie is an identity transformation consultant, speaker, advocate, and co-founder of the Girls Room Project, a community supporting women navigating endometriosis, chronic illness, and major life transitions. She has spent nearly 2 decades working in operating rooms, but her most important work grew out of her own personal journey. What I appreciate most about Callie's story is that she understands what happens when life doesn't go according to plan, when your health changes, when your future looks different than you imagined, when the person you thought you were suddenly has to be redefined. Her work is rooted in helping women navigating that space, the space between who you were before a life-changing experience and who they're becoming because of it. Today, we're talking about identity, resilience, chronic illness, reinvention, and what it means to find yourself again when the life that you were on and that path that you were on is suddenly changed. Callie, welcome to Elevate Within.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a beautiful intro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I try.
It's very, very inspirational.
That's what it's all about, right? So let's start at the beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and the experiences that shaped the woman that you are today?
Yeah. So my journey is long. Like you said in my intro, I spent 2 decades, 18 plus years working in healthcare as a med device sales rep and working in an operating room every day. Fell in love with medicine when I was 7. My dad is a doctor, and I just knew that I wanted to go into healthcare. I originally did want to be a psychiatrist, and I was
Mm.
diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, and a bunch of other learning disabilities when I was in high school. And as much as I do believe that you can do anything you put your mind to, at that age, believing that and actually putting it into motion was more difficult for me to really like hold. And so I knew that getting into med school was probably not going to be the easiest thing for me. So um, I still ended up in the OR, and that system that I worked for 18 plus years happened to be the same system that failed me. And got my period when I was 13, and it brought debilitating pain, cramps that would knock me to my feet. I'd have to stay home from school. I had chronic migraines, back pain. My body changed like overnight. Careful what you wish for when you say you want big boobs. That genie listened and granted me that wish. And I felt just so out of touch with my body. And I went to the gynecologist, and I remember that appointment like it was yesterday. And she sat me down and told me that my pain was normal and that some women just have painful cramps. And even though my flow was so heavy that I would have to wear 2 tampons and switch them every 20 to 25 minutes, that there was nothing to be concerned about. And at 13, obviously my mom was in that room with me, and neither one of us had the language or knew the questions to ask. And when at that age and when I was growing up, you don't question somebody that is wearing a white coat.
Right.
They're the
Right.
professional. So she put me on birth control and wanted to prescribe me opioids at 13.
Wow. That's crazy.
Those were my 2 options, and I'm so glad that, I have parents that have made it very comfortable and an open space where my sister and I felt completely comfortable going to them and talking to them about anything that had to do with our body, and not everybody is that lucky. And my mom said, "Absolutely not. My daughter is not taking opioids." So we agreed to the birth control, and without making a very long story very long, that pain continued my entire life. And I went to probably 12 different doctors, including uh, physical therapists, nutritionists, gastroenterologists. I had a colonoscopy. I was told that I had anxiety and I needed to practice breathing more. I was told I had IBS. I was put on what's called a FODMAP anti-inflammatory diet, and nothing was working. And every year at my annual, I would say and present with the same symptoms, and every doctor looked at me and said that it was normal. So I learned to mask the pain
Mm.
because I thought, okay, maybe I'm just weak. And I grew up where our friends didn't talk about this. Like, we didn't
Right.
sit and talk about our bodies or what we were going through. I knew when friends were on their periods, but we never had the conversation where it was like, hey, like, do you experience this too? Are you having really severe bleeding? That was not a conversation that was had.
Right. Right.
So you become really good with chronic illness at presenting and performing and masking. And that's what I did my entire life. And then I found a partner when I was 30 years old. And at 35, it was the first time from I was 13 that I went off birth control. And as soon as I went off birth control, my pain and symptoms went from, I would say, an 8 to a 30. And I
Oh.
ended up in the ER 4 months consecutive. And one of the times I went in, it was a woman nurse, and I remember feeling like some weight taken off, like she's gonna understand. She when I tell her what I'm going through, she's gonna be able to just immediately relate. And instead, she asked what my pain level was, 1 through 10, and I said 30. And she rolled her eyes and kind of gave me this like, I don't think you understand. And then she did say this. If 10 is the worst, it's like somebody's getting their limb cut off. I don't think you understand the pain scale.
Mhm.
Don't talk back to me like that.
Right.
I was not having it. And I said, I am very, very aware of how the pain scale works. I work in healthcare. And if I'm telling you that 10 is the max, and I'm saying I'm a 30, I feel like every limb is being slowly cut off and the insides felt like barbed wire. And you could see it on my face. I actually took a picture when I was in the ER and I have it still. And you can, I mean, I looked so ill. And she looked at my then boyfriend and asked if I was on anything.
This is crazy. Just really quick, the hospital that you were in, and going back, I know your father was a doctor, and I'm
Hmm.
so sorry what you went through as a child. Like, my heart goes out to you. What practice was your father in?
My dad is a retired orthopedic surgeon specializing
Awesome.
in total joints.
And he had no connections. Like, this is just folks would think about, like, oh, if you have a doctor, you'll just know somebody that can kind of help you, type of thing. Was
Nope.
that not the case?
No, he actually was the one that suggested I go to the gastroenterologist because I was having such bad digestion issues. Like I either was like so clogged up or I was the other way. Like there was no happy medium. And
Hmm.
so we did think that it had to do with the gut. And so when I got that diagnosis of IBS, it did feel like, oh, okay, we figured it out. And then um this doctor, the gastroenterologist, had me get a colonoscopy and it showed that like my colon was inflamed, but like that was it. So that's why he was like, it's likely IBS. Let's put you on an anti-inflammatory diet.
And was your mom or your sister, like, who was around you from like that 13 to 30 years old that was like, hey, we're going to figure this out together. We're going to do it together. Did you have that support system at all?
So, like I said, I think that nobody had language or knowledge that this could be anything other than IBS. And so I'm not saying that like my parents weren't advocates or weren't supporting. And at the same time, like they didn't know what else to do. I had literally seen every type of doctor and not just like one. I was being shuffled around numerous different doctors in all aspects of the healthcare system. So
Hmm.
they were doing what they felt, and I did too, was necessary. Like, just we're going to make an appointment with another doctor and another doctor.
Right. And what city is this in?
I'm in Denver, Colorado.
So it's not like you're in some rural
Nope.
area where you have to drive like 2 hours to get to a doctor. Like,
No,
you're in a
I have
metropolitan
access. I'm
area.
very, very aware of how lucky, privileged I am that I have, you know, the means to go and see whatever doctor I wanted to and needed to. And that also is part of the problem with the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So
so
at 30, you're at the hospital. What is your occupation then?
so at 30, I'm still in med device sales. So
Okay.
from the second I graduated college up until about 6 months ago, I have had my career in med device sales.
Hmm. Okay. And
And
then what happened after this rude nurse is like making it seem like, oh, you're probably on drugs or you're over
yeah,
exaggerating. What happened then?
So for anybody who has experience going to the ER, they cannot administer any pain medicine or any drugs until they draw blood and figure out, like, if anything that they would give you would be bad to mix with what you're currently taking or have in your blood system. And so they did take my blood, and she came back and she gave me two options. She said, "We can give you opioids and send you home and you can follow up with your OB, or we can call the on-call OB and they'll likely take you into surgery and do an exploratory surgery, and there's no guarantee of whether or not you wake up with or without your ovaries."
That's what an exploratory surgery is, where they just cut you open and looking in like, let's see what's wrong?
With a doctor that I had never met, with somebody who didn't have my medical history, and I ripped my IV out and I left. I said, "Let's go." I said, "Those are my options." And, when you go into the ER, they do all the things. They take your x-ray, any further imaging that they're able to, and nothing was showing up on my scans except cysts,
Mhm.
which I was told over and over and over again that cysts are normal. They'll take care of themselves. Go and follow up with your OB if you're still, hurting in 3 weeks. I mean, it's it's beyond frustrating, and every time I tell my story, you would think that, like, I'd get used to telling it and that anger would, like, subside over time, and it
No.
doesn't.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And so this continued to happen, and until I was, like, 5 months in, and at my last ER visit, they thought I was having appendicitis, and that's when I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's it.
Mhm.
This was it." And they admitted me and they were prepping me for surgery. And I remember getting in the bed and, they're telling me, "We're going to roll you back now." And I thought, "Wait a second, are you guys going to do a CT scan first to confirm
Mhm.
that I was having appendicitis?" And the doctor was like, "It's not needed. Given how you're presenting, where you say your pain is, we're pretty confident that it's an appendicitis." And this is when I am very thankful that I know the healthcare system and that I had a mouth and
Mhm.
said, "No, I want a CT scan." Like, I don't care whether or not you are confident. I want a CT scan because I want to make sure.
Right.
And it's because I pushed for that scan that I didn't have an unnecessary surgery and didn't have my appendix taken out.
Jesus.
And that's after that experience, I was like, "I'm done, like, done." And I was looking for a new OB, and I had a friend of mine who went to one who she swore by, and I made an appointment with her. And this doctor was what I hope every doctor would be. And this doctor sat with me for an hour and just listened to me.
Mhm.
And she, after I got done speaking, looked at me and said, "I'm sorry. I am so sorry that you have gone your entire life in this much pain and not one single doctor had investigated it further." And that's when she said, "Do you know what endometriosis is?"
Wow.
I was like, "Huh?" And it was 2018 when the actress Lena Dunham came out with an article she wrote about herself and having endometriosis. And I remember in 2018 reading it, and it was as if I was reading my own story. So it was
Mhm.
a very out of body experience. And at the same time, as I'm reading it, seeing myself in everything that she was writing, I was like, "But I've seen so many doctors, and not one doctor has ever mentioned this endometriosis. So surely I I don't have it. They would have diagnosed me with it."
Right. Do,
And
do
so
you know in the medical field, like the medical journals or whatever, Is there enough write-up about endometriosis at
Yeah,
all?
no. So that is part of the one of the biggest problems is that endo and women's health in general lack funding and research. And it is not as if endo is this new disease. Like it's
Mhm.
been around since the 1800s. And it actually, back in the day, was called hysteria. And women were put into psychiatric hospitals because they presented with pain. They were expressing like how, whatever. And the doctors and men back then were like, she's crazy.
You would think, and I'm assuming, and I don't know, so, educate me and the other listeners. You would think that there are more women healthcare practitioners that would understand, like, "Hey, there's not enough, research or, knowledge for the doctors for endo, and so I wanna get into that
Mhm.
field and help women." Is there any kind of movement? Is there any doctors or books or other
Yeah.
podcasts, something?
Yeah, there are. There are as many doctors out there that are awful. There are equally, if not more, ones that actually care. The biggest problem is when you're going through med school and you're going through residency and your fellowship, there is no specialty for endometriosis. So if you're going to
Got
med
it.
school to be an OB, they don't spend more than like 2 weeks on reproductive diseases like endo, PCOS, which is now PMMOS, fibroids. And so there's no incentive for a surgeon or OB to gain further knowledge because the system has set us up for failure. And part of the problem is due to how endoexcision surgery is coded for insurance. So there's two different types of surgery that person can have when they have endo. One is called ablation, and I explain that just like if you were to take a lighter and just kind of burn off the surface. Endo is like weeds. They plant roots and it can spread in any part of the body. So if you're only burning the top, it's like a weed. Your roots
Mhm.
are still there, so it's going to grow again. The only way to treat endo is by excision. And that's when they go in and they actually remove all of the tissue, all of the masses. It's a lengthy surgery and it takes a surgeon who is very skilled and knows what endo looks like. The problem is like me and millions of other women out there, ablation surgery and endo excision surgery are coded the same. So a surgeon
Wow.
ablation takes about 30-45 minutes.
Mhm.
If that person has severe endometriosis, like I do, they're getting paid the same amount for a 30-minute, and my operation was 6 hours. So
So,
why would a surgeon,
would wanna do something for 6 hours when
when
he
they're
can
going to
just
be
get paid
paid
for
just the
30
same if they
minutes?
were to go in and just burn it off?
Mm.
Um, so there is a massive hole within our healthcare system. And unfortunately, I wish I could sit here and say that I have hope that it will change. I don't think it will. I
What
think that,
what's the percentage of women that has endo?
so statistically, it says 1 in 10. It is so much more than that. Uh,
Mhm.
1 in 10 is not true. They say 190 million women have endo. The problem is that statistic is so far off and so low because it takes an average of 7 to 10 years to get a diagnosis. And many women, which is why this is so messy, are asymptomatic and they don't know they have it until maybe they start trying having kids.
Mm.
And endo affects fertility. And I didn't know that. So when I found out that I had endo, I had my excision surgery. And at the time, I was married. We did 4 rounds of IVF that all failed. I was given a 1 to 3% chance of conceiving. And I was diagnosed at 37. And at 39, my endo had already grown back, and I had to go in for an emergency total hysterectomy and lost my ability to have kids because of this
Sorry.
disease.
I'm sorry. So sorry to hear that. And I know that happens, I'm sure it happens to a lot of women
Mhm,
who go undiagnosed or asymptomatic. And I actually learned a little bit about it when the Martin Short documentary on Netflix, his
mhm.
wife, the one, Home Alone, the mom,
Yep.
she had it, and she had to get a full hysterectomy. And, they ended up adopting 3 children.
Mhm.
Um, but then that was also a different time period where they were happy. They had healthy people around in their life. So going through that hysterectomy, going through all of that, who's around you? Like who's your support system?
My family, and I am so blessed to have my family all lives in Denver,
Mhm.
and, um, my my dear best friends. I
Good.
mean, it was the darkest period of my life up till now. I mean, I've never experienced such grief and loss and anger and having to process everything because everything happened so fast too. I ended up filing for divorce 5 months after my
I
total
was about to ask
hysterectomy.
you, like, where's your husband in all of this? Because you didn't mention him.
No. I was very alone during this process. I was in a covert narcissistic abusive relationship for 10 years and hid it from everyone. And the accumulation of everything that happened just was too much. And I think subconsciously, I just, I ended it. Like, I mean, it just was too much. And so I had to tell and my friends and family. And I think everybody just assumed that it was the IVF that kind of broke us because going through that is really rough on a marriage and it affects the woman and man individually as well as you know, the partnership. And
Is that what
they,
happened between you guys?
no, no.
So what happened beforehand?
Yeah. So we had been together for, let's see, 6 years before we got married. And then the diagnosis came and everything was very rushed. We weren't married when I got the diagnosis, but I had to get on his insurance plan because his insurance was better than my company's and
Mm.
it was going to cover IVF and it was going to cover surgery. And the hard part is after I got the divorce is people are like, wait a second, like you were in this abusive relationship and then you were trying to have a child with this person. Oh man, there's a lot of layers there. You cannot judge a book, man, unless you were in it. And a covert narcissist is a different type of devil. um, you know, I
Give it
had
like an example so other women who might be in that situation would know.
I had a suitcase thrown at my head. I over 10 years was screamed at and told I was weak and told I was worthless. It's emotional and verbal and abuse and then the physical intimidation. And slowly they present however a person wants them to present. So they will make you fall in love with them because they get you to reveal all your most vulnerable parts and then they stack it and they use it as ammunition.
Mhm.
Um, and everything that I had bared my soul to him about when we first started dating, my fear of failing, my dyslexia, my ADHD, the things that like made me feel like I was a loser, an idiot, that I couldn't do anything. Those were all the things that he made me feel like made me special. And then once he got me, it
Mm.
was all the things that he threw back at me.
Right, right, right. Yep.
You don't contribute. what do you do around here? I do everything. I'm the one who pays for this. We were married and we ended up doing one round with an egg donor. And it no longer was like our money. It was, I used my bonus to pay for this. It was just a constant, they just break you down psychologically and like make you feel like you are worthless. And I lost my voice. I lost who I was. He started really dividing and like putting a wedge in between the relationship that I had with my mom and my sister, and
Mhm.
was slowly like taking me out of,
Your community,
yeah,
isolating you so he can control
yes.
you.
And it doesn't, this is not something that happens overnight. It
Right.
happens slowly because it's a cycle. So the abuse comes and then they apologize. They tell you how much they love you. They give you a gift. They plan a trip. And what happens as the victim is that love bombing that comes right after the abuse. It's so calculated because it's like they're trying to show you like, oh, okay, he's going to change. Like, this is the person I fell in love with. And then things are okay for a couple of weeks and the cycle then continues. And as this happens slowly, they are removing you away from your community and they are taking control financially, and you are left, this is the only person that you can rely on now. So you then are instilled with like, I can't leave because of embarrassment, of shame, of everything that you thought that this person was, but then they're presenting that way to family and friends.
Mhm.
So having to tell them all of these stories, like, are they going to believe me? Or are they going to think that I'm lying because what they've seen him? Yeah, he puts on a show
Right.
and he's really good at it.
And is it fair to say that because of you had the dyslexia, the ADHD, not trusting the health community to diagnose you early and to save you early, did you? I would assume like you just kind of shrunk into yourself, and there was no strength or like you know how they say like fight or flight. You
No,
know,
I didn't know how to fight. I was paralyzed, of fear every time I came home, and then I'm presented with this disease and being told that I may not be able to be a mother, which was something that was my dream. I ever since I was little, that I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have the type of relationship with my child that I had with my mom and my dad and my
Mhm.
grandparents and my sister. And that is all being presented while being in an abusive relationship, while going to couples therapy. And until you are until you are in that position, and there was no win-win for me.
So you mentioned couples therapy. I was going to ask you that, like going through being in this abusive relationship, and going through the health issues. I was going to ask if you sought therapy. So was
Oh,
it
we
just
were in
couples
therapy
therapy?
for years, but you can't do therapy with a covert narcissist unless you go to a therapist who is trained in recognizing what narcissists do.
And none of them could see those signs?
No, they were manipulated just as much as I was.
Hmm.
But when you're in it, it is really difficult to fully understand what is going on. So in my head, I thought a narcissist, when somebody was like, oh, they're such a narcissist. And I do think that this phrase is said very lazy. And I think that people need to understand fully what it is. Because for me, I was like, a narcissist is somebody who can't walk by a mirror without looking at themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought narcissism was. It wasn't until I finally left, which, by the way, it took me 8 times. And statistically, it takes around 7 to 8 times to leave an abusive relationship.
So if you don't mind, so you did try to leave.
Mhm.
So tell me like the first couple times, like what was going through your mind? Where were you going? Like what was the final straw that was like, F it, I'm out?
Um, each time I tried, it was a slow try. So, I would try and distance myself from him. I would maybe stay at my mom's house a couple of nights and, like, trying to gain up the amount of like, I needed to pump myself up to be able to tell my mom or my sister, like, "Okay, I need your help," asking for help, really, because
Mhm.
I knew I wasn't gonna be able to do it alone. And he had put me in a position where financially I really couldn't do it alone. And the part about when you're thinking of leaving is that's why you stay, is because they have instilled so much fear in you that and they have taken so much away from you that the process of getting out of an abusive relationship is like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to like, where am I going to live? How am I going to like afford to take care of myself?
And
And
you're still in your career too, right? And you
I
still
did go
feel like
part
you
time,
okay, you
um,
went part-time.
because I was considered geriatric. Anytime you're trying to get pregnant past the age of 35, that is the term that they call it, is geriatric, and I was such a high risk, and so, I really had to watch, like, my stress and
Right. So you
all of
couldn't
that,
work as much. Right.
and, of course, at the beginning, he was totally on board and agreed and was, "Don't worry about it," and I just want to say that going part-time for me was fine because even as a part-time, I was still making enough money that, like, it
You
it
could
didn't.
sustain on your own, you just didn't
Yes, but
believe it.
I didn't think that I could because
Right.
he had just completely torn me down, um,
So
and
going to the escape, trying to, what happened, what triggered on because I know you said you tried a couple of times, soft,
mhm.
but what was the final straw that you stood up for yourself and was like, "I'm out"?
We were in Palm Springs meeting, went out to visit my dad, and there's a tennis tournament in Palm Springs that's a professional tennis tournament, and I grew up playing tennis competitively, and I'd always wanted to go to this tournament, and my dad bought us tickets to go and see it. And that morning, narcissists love when you're looking forward to something. They have a way of just destroying any type of happiness, birthdays, holidays. The attention has to be on them. And he knew how excited I was about this and how much money my dad had spent on these tickets. And he picked a fight. He told me I was too loud, and it blew up into what it always did was he would scream at me, yell at me, and I would freeze because saying anything just made it worse. So all I did the 10 years was just apologize for my actions. All change. I'm sorry. I made you feel attacked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And we were in public when he was verbally screaming at me. And not one person stopped and asked if I was okay. People just walked by and stared. And physically, you could see that, like, you know,
It was
I
in
was
danger.
crying.
Right.
I was trying to diffuse the situation, and not one person in public. They saw this man, like, screaming at me, calling me names, calling me a selfish brat, a bitch. Um, and not one person stopped. And I don't know, to be honest, Sandy, but something went off, and I just walked away, and I got in the car, and I drove home to my dad's house, and I walked in the door, and I took my ring off, and I said, "I'm fucking done. I'm divorcing him."
Mm.
And my dad was like, "What?" And then I had to and then subconsciously too, I called my mom and my sister, and
Mhm.
I said, I was hysterical crying. I could hardly, like, get out a word, and I think deep down I knew that if I told them this story, there was no going back. There was no way that my mom and
Right.
my sister were gonna allow me to go back, and my body knew that,
Mm.
And that's, I think, what.
That's your triumph. That's your safety. That's the, hey, once I let them know they're gonna protect me.
And they
Something
did.
that, yeah, something that you probably did not feel
And I
majority
tried
of your
going back.
life.
I tried going
You
back.
did.
My dad found me in the closet, with the door closed, and I was on the phone with him hiding because my mom had called my dad. My parents are divorced, and my mom had told my dad, take her phone away from her.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want him contacting. And I wouldn't give him my phone. And I was getting the text messages, oh my God, I can't live without you. I'm so sorry. I love you so much. This is what they do. Let's go back into counseling. Um, and then it would flip.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I started sticking up for myself and saying, no, I can't do this anymore. Like, you treat me like crap. You talk to me like crap. Like, you say that you love me, but in the same sentence, you're calling me a bitch and a selfish brat.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like the text message of, okay, when you get back home to Denver, you'll see that the banking account has already changed. I left you $1,000. You can figure out from there. I moved everything else out. I've already called the best doctor. If you think I'm a monster now, wait until you fucking see the monster I can be. The threats. And then I would get a phone call, and it was, can we do this amicably? Can we sit at the table and do the divorce, just you and me? We don't need lawyers.
Hmm.
So that was a way to try and
Mm-hmm.
get me back. Let's just meet. Come meet me at the Ritz-Carlton. I got us a room for the night. Don't go home. I'll change your ticket. And then at the same time, I would get a text message hours later threatening me that he had a recording of me that he was going to present in court.
Well, then and I'm sure it was all bullshit.
All
So
bullshit.
a lot of women go through that, and um, so the day you decide to finally leave, like, walk me through when you and if you actually chose yourself to be like, you know what, Callie, you deserve better. You deserve a better life. You deserve love. Did you ever feel that?
Not then. It took months for me to feel like that. My mom and my sister immediately went to our house, and we have the digital codes. So
Mm-hmm.
you just press it in, and they moved me out
Good.
before I had even gotten home from Palm Springs.
Oh.
And when my mom picked me up at the airport, when I got home, I remember being like, this is not fair. You guys are telling me that I have to choose between you and him. Like, what happens if I just live with you, mom? We'll continue to go to counseling and see. The fear was still in me that my identity was wrapped in being a wife, having the big ring, having the car, having the house, having, you know, what was perceived from the outside as this glamorous life,
Mm-hmm.
which I associated to success. I mapped that together, and that was ingrained in me from a little girl based on how I grew up and the community that I grew up in. So by me making this decision, I was taking a grenade to my own life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was terrified. And no, I couldn't see this being this decision that I had just made. I thought I ruined my life.
Right.
And it took, I would say, over a year for me to recognize everything that I had been put through, who he actually was, who I am, and shifting the identity that I had given myself into this new reality, this new identity.
Mm-hmm.
and
W
being okay with it.
Was it talk therapy? Like, what kind of therapy did you go through to go through this,
So,
not just reinvention, but healing?
yeah. So I'm a huge believer in talk therapy. Talk therapy was not helping with this. I w- was being upped on my antidepressants and upped on my anxiety pills to the point where I was a robot. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel joy, sadness, happiness. Like I felt like I was just existing, and that was about it. And my sister was the one who was like, I love you. And I also think that like you need to step out of the traditional box and maybe try some other therapy methods.
Mhm.
And she actually was the one that suggested somatic therapy and
There's a
psychedelic.
lot of women going to that. Then and it's becoming a well-known practice that's becoming successful. My best friend, she's actually into that.
It
So
is, yeah. So I ended up doing the somatic massage
mhm,
therapy, and then I did macro dose of psilocybin,
mhm.
and they were life changing. I'm so grateful that like my sister suggested it, and also that I was willing to step out of the box
Mhm.
and try something different, because I think that we're very, humans, we're trained like, no, you go through something, you go and talk to a psychiatrist. Yes, and sometimes I don't necessarily think that psychiatrists are taught that like trauma is a one size fits all and here are the steps
Mhm.
to get through it. And I was dealing with a lot of different kinds of trauma.
Right.
Like this wasn't a one size fits all.
Right.
And I didn't want to not feel. And so between the somatic therapy and the psilocybin, I was able to titrate off of my antidepressants down to the dosage that I've been at since I was a teenager, and I was no longer having to take Xanax every day.
Mhm.
And that's when I started recognizing I s I saved myself.
Right. So this is the reinvention
Mhm.
process that you're in right now, right? And you're what is that? You take back control of your career. Do you get a place of your own? Like,
Mhm.
what does that look like?
Yeah. So I lived with my mom for a year while I was, you know, I needed to be
Right.
watched.
Right.
And I started very slowly between somatic, psilocybin. I started meeting with a coach. And the
What kind of
difference
coach?
between a coach, like a life coach,
Mhm.
and a psychiatrist or therapist is there's not that legal barrier. Um, like they are participant in the conversation. It's
Mhm.
not just one-sided. And this person had experienced infertility and stillborn.
Mm.
And I found 60 minutes talking with her was more therapeutic than a year that I had been in talk therapy, because I didn't have to explain to her what I was going through. Like the loss, the grief, the just something had been not just physically pulled out of me, but like the emotion that's tied, the finality of like realizing I will never be able to have biological children. And she got that and was able to relate and talk about her experience with me. And it was really helpful. And that's when I was like, I don't know, there was, this is hard, I guess.
Take your time.
You feel like you're taking 10 steps forward and then you're taking 5 steps back. And at the same time, I felt like meeting with her once a week and working with her held me accountable. Um, and I say that in a way that's like not just, okay, I want you to journal and I want you to do this. It was even something just as Callie, between now and the next time that we see each other, I just want you to step outside.
Mhm.
If you feel like going for a walk, great. If not, just step outside. And even something as simple as that, when you are deeply depressed, that takes a lot of energy.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it was giving me something that I needed to do,
Right.
and then it was holding me accountable. And that's how small it started, was literally getting off of the bed, getting off of the couch, and just going outside and sitting outside at the front porch.
Right.
And then slowly, through talking it out with her, and, I naturally have always loved to write. And so I was writing poetry and I was slowly re-entering the world because at that point, going out was a trigger because every time I stepped outside meant that I was possibly going to see a stroller with a baby in it, or I was going to see somebody that was pregnant, or I was going to see a couple holding hands.
Mhm.
And by process of actually doing these things, it's actually what pulled me out and showed me how strong I actually was. And it is true, you go through all the stages of grief.
Mhm.
And when I got to the anger part, I was fucking angry.
Right.
And I was angry for so many different reasons, but that anger motivated me to do something about it because I
Right.
had a choice. I could either sit and be sad and woe is me, and that's okay, I think. I think that people should allow themselves to do that. I don't think that we need to put a time limit on somebody's grief. And
Mhm.
at the same time, I will say that I also knew that I needed to stop that at some point because the world continues to spin.
Yep. And let me ask you, have you ever thought about adopting? Was it more important that the baby came from you or just having a child?
Um, yes, I have. And this is something I say with I can only speak for myself
Mhm.
and I don't want to speak for any other women out there who are experiencing this. Um, when I was in, the thick of the morning and just couldn't even see the day being bright or a silver lining, people would say to me, Callie, you can still have a family. It's just going to look different. And I know that people meant that well. And I know that people that were saying it to me were people that I know loved me.
Mhm.
And that is not helpful.
Okay.
I am in the thick of it, and that is not what I want to hear. So somebody can say that to me now. It doesn't bother me as much. There's just, for somebody who, like me, who wanted to be a mom and wanted to experience everything that came along with that, and that meant carrying a baby and feeling all those things and, the physical changes. Um, it's just hard to know that it's not even a choice anymore.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
it's physically not happening. It can't. This is not something that can be redone like a vasectomy.
Right. Right.
Um,
Walk us through how you ended up starting this foundation
mhm,
for women that, are going through what you went through.
yeah. So it was through working with this coach and, I she gave me I guess she made me believe in myself again And as I started becoming more myself and finding who I was and what I wanted to do with like what my life was now, this next, chapter,
Mhm.
um, figuring out and letting go of the identity that I was holding
Mhm.
was a big thing. And I remember her just like having me lay it out like, okay, this is what you're identifying. This is what you had identified as. Why is it so scary to let that go? What happens when you name it
Mhm.
and then realize like that's not who you are anymore and that's okay? Who are you right now? So let's figure that out and then go live your life, Callie. And through working with her, I decided, okay, what am I pissed about? What do I want to do with my life? I'm
Mhm.
pissed about the healthcare system. I'm pissed that like my story ended this way. I don't want other people's story to end this way. So what
Right.
does that mean? That means I want to help the younger generation. So I started a podcast and it started with that. And it just really was like also therapeutic for me. And then it was like, I want to amplify other people's voices and bring community. And then I was like, this feels really good. I want to do
Mhm.
more. And then I was like, I want to help more people, but in different ways, not just with endometriosis. And so I went and got my license to be a coach. And then as I'm living at my mom's and I'm, you know, okay, I'm ready to buy a house, I started creating the Name It, Own It, Live It program as I'm going through my coaching certification and everything. And I did it. And then I was like, that finishing, that graduating, and was just such an empowering thing
Yes.
because it was like he would tell me that I couldn't do anything and I wasn't, capable, and I needed him to be this person that I was becoming, and I didn't, and that felt
Right.
so good.
And
And
I'm
it
sure
does
it
feel
looked good
so
too.
good.
Like it looked good, it felt good. You have purpose. I mean, it's what I'm going through now with like, hey, I started journaling. I'm doing Elevate Within, reaching out to other women, talking about the messy middle,
Hmm.
transferring that anger into motivations.
Hmm.
But sometimes, you know, uh, anger can be used wisely where it keeps those at bay that you don't need around you.
Yes.
And two, also that motivation of, I'm tired of the injustice
Hmm.
in my life and I want justice and I want purpose. And you just, like you said, take a grenade to your life and then you start this new life that is a new journey. I know it can be scary.
It's and that's the other thing is I wanted to be alone. I had
Hmm.
never been alone. Like, I was known, like, through my family growing up, like, I was a serial dater. I was either in a committed relationship or I was dating somebody because I had attached this identity of success and, like, love with a man.
Hmm.
I didn't know that, like, it was okay to, like, just love yourself and, like,
Right.
live your life because that to me growing up was not what I thought people would perceive. I thought I would be looked at as like, poor Callie,
Hmm.
poor Callie. And so I really had to work at letting that identity go and figuring out why I held so much like I just was like, you need to be alone. And I'm so glad I decided that because I love my life. It looks different. And I for sure couldn't have seen this happiness 3 years ago.
Right.
I've used everything that I've gone through and learned, not just through school, but through life to build the program that I build and help my clients walk through. And there, there is so much power in loving who you are and being so unapologetically happy with that person.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about the Girls Room Project.
Yeah. So my business partner and I, Jamie, started the Girls Room Project, and we both are endometriosis patients, and we are so passionate about early education and recognizing that there's a massive gap in the wellness area on giving language to both parents and young girls and how to actually talk about periods, hormones, reproductive disease, self-advocacy, what to look for, what not to look for, and how do parents talk to their kids about it, and how do kids feel confident to talk to their parents about it. And so we created an online membership educational space for teens, tweens, and young adults and the parents that love them. And we built out lessons for each age group. And it's a resource center for a family to go to and get real medical advice. My business partner is a nurse. Her husband is a doctor. We have a medical board. And we also offer one-on-one services where we help a family or an individual go through their journey with the healthcare system if they need it. And we walk them through and prep them for every appointment and give them the list of questions. And because we've got inside knowledge, we give tips and tricks because it shouldn't be this hard. People should not have to go even 6 months. Like if you're
Right.
having this much pain, a parent needs to know, and a girl needs to know what actually happens in their body.
Is this a website?
Mhm.
What's the website? So
The
people
website
have it.
is thegirlsroomofficial.com, and our podcast is The Girls Room After Dark. And that one's a little spicier, so I wouldn't want, it's not made for young girls.
I always love ending Elevate Within episodes with something reflective. When you think about the woman listening right now, the woman in the messy middle, what do you want to leave her with today?
I am going to ask her the same question that was asked to me. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is piece by piece.
I've never heard of that before. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Callie, thank you so much for sharing your raw story.
Thank
Um, and going there, and I get it when we're talking about our past traumas. Like, I saw you kind of go there. That's why, I just wanted to be there with you and
Mhm.
wanted to make sure you felt safe and like, hey, this is a safe space to speak about. And for the women listening, you have to understand, like, when we go through those traumatic episodes, when we're going back, or there's a part of us that relives it, even though
Mhm.
we are still healing, even though
And
we're
I just have to
reinventing.
say, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
no,
you.
no.
This is the first time I've ever publicly spoke about the abuse. You are the first person on
Thank you.
I haven't even talked about it on my podcast yet.
It's crazy, and why we are so much alike. And when we spoke the first time, I didn't start sharing my story until a month ago. This is really a safe space where we're all sharing our stories. Where, yes, on the outside, we do look professional, polished. They have their life together. They're successful. They have money. They have all this. And it's for the first time we're coming out and saying, like, yeah, actually, that's not true.
Mhm.
And take a look at what I've been dealing with. And not only that, but I had to reinvent myself. And when we do, we come out more purposeful. Now we're paying it forward. We're helping those. We're like, hey, if I can help one woman, then I've done my job. And that's why I love that you decided to share your story with me. I love the fact that you are on here. I absolutely love you
I love you.
because
I love what you're doing so much. And I think it's just, oh, it's so true. It's just the world right now is so messed up and there's so much division. And I think we talked about this. It's just at the end of the day, we all bleed the same color.
Mhm.
And the more we are open and talk about this kind of stuff, the more you're going to find in common with another person.
Yeah.
And color, race, money.
Doesn't
It
matter with
doesn't
our health
matter.
issues. It doesn't matter with our
Trauma and
identity. Right. Right.
life doesn't discriminate. And instead of the competition, which is so intense with women all the time, it's can we support each other? Because by me celebrating your success, I'm
Mhm.
celebrating my success.
Yes. We're celebrating together. So
Yes.
this is a movement. And I told you, I was like, listen, I'm building a movement and
Yes.
I'm collecting everybody, like, let's go. Let's share our stories. Let's give the antidotes. This Friday, we're going to have the roundtable discussion with the therapists and wellness coaches. And I have a good friend that also does like the psychedelics, so she'll be
Yeah.
able to speak and educate it about it more because it has helped a lot of people. I think Mike Tyson was also like a big advocate of it, with
Mhm.
like the anger issues. So it speaks volumes to that.
Veterans are now finding, it
Right.
helps with PTSD. I'm such a huge advocate of it.
Yeah. So I can't wait to get into that discussion. And um, I- we're always going to be in contact. I will
We are.
always support you. Would love to have you back one day. Would love to, especially, when people want to have more information about endo and your
Mhm.
foundation and what you're doing, and listening to the podcast. Like I want that. I think for others, they need that. This
Mhm.
is education. This is
And
us
I'm an
paying it
open
forward.
book. Like,
Yeah.
I give my cell phone number to anybody who wants it, and you can text me, call me whenever. Like, I just wanna help
Yeah.
and be there for others.
Tell folks where they can reach you.
Yeah. So my personal website is calliegreenberg.com. For the Girls Room Project is thegirlsroomofficial.com. And then you can find on social media, Callie_Greenberg.
I so greatly appreciate you again, especially for joining this series.
And I really appreciate it. Being that this was the first time that I've openly talked about that part of my life, and you made it very safe for me to be able to do that. And I appreciate it. And
You're welcome.
I would love for you to come on to Girls Room Project.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. All right. If you'd like to learn more about Callie's work or connect with her directly, you'll also find all of her information and links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within. And before I go, if no one told you that they loved you today, I love you. So, Callie, I love you.
I love you. You're making me cry. That was so.
If this conversation resonated with you, you're not alone. That's exactly why this space exists. Elevate Within is for the high-achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The architecture of reinvention is an invitation to pause, to reflect, to heal, and to begin the process of unbecoming everything you were told you had to be, so you could become who you were always meant to be. Be sure to join us each Friday for our Architecture of Reinvention Roundtable discussions, where we continue these conversations and explore the deeper lessons, insights, tools, and reflections that emerge from each story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. For Apple Podcast listeners, I would be grateful if you leave a rating or review. It helps reach more women who may need this conversation right now. And if you'd like to go deeper, join us on Substack at Elevate Within. There, you'll find weekly essays and honest conversations about burnout, grief, reinvention, resilience, healing, and the messy middle. Free subscribers receive full access to all public content, while paid subscribers receive bonus essays, early access to upcoming series, behind-the-scenes recording, and opportunities to engage directly with the community. If you know of a woman who needs to hear this conversation today, please share it with her. You can find me on LinkedIn under Sandra Davis, on Substack at Elevate Within, and if you're in need of fractional COO work or would like to book a discovery call on how I can help, you can reach out to me at elevateopsadvisory.com. You'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within.